On today's episode, we are talking about anger and coping strategies. I'm looking forward to sort of talking about that a little bit more in depth with a licensed therapist to get their experience about working with boys specifically, and how do we help them cope with anger as well as aggressive behaviors. Before we jump into the conversation, I'll give you an opportunity just to let the audience know a little bit about yourself and
Mhm.
the work that you're doing.
Definitely. So I am a licensed therapist and owner of Fully Connected Counseling right here in Wichita, Kansas. So I see, not just Black folks, but I see all ranges of colors and ages. But I like to kind of work with, people really helping them understanding those underlying issues when it comes to anger, depression, and anxiety.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And, as I've mentioned to you before, and for people that listen to this show, the topics oftentimes focus on the Black community,
Hmm.
Black boys and men specifically. But
Right.
oftentimes the topics do branch a lot of different audiences. And so
For sure.
the tools might be helpful for anyone. We oftentimes talk about anger as being one of those emotions, specifically for boys and men, that is sort of acceptable. Like it's the one emotion that we're sort of allowed to have outside of,
Yeah,
like, we can't be anxious, we can't be, sad, but anger is one that it's sort of okay for us to be able to
man,
express those
that's
emotions.
real.
And so, like, I'm wondering, like, how do you see, like, masculinity norms in society, and like how we grow up, like how does that even shape the expression of anger specifically for boys
Right.
and men?
So when I would do anger management groups for the city, when I work with adults and men and women, there's always kind of that first lesson I would teach is that anger is not, anger is not genetic, So a lot of parents I work with the kids, they say, well, his dad was angry and he's gonna be angry too. Like that's not, it's not, you don't inherit like anger. It's not genetic. It's a learned behavior. So we learn how to be angry. And usually when you have a lot of anger, I usually ask a lot of clients like, when was the first time you saw your mom angry, your dad angry, or somebody close to you angry? Because the thing is, what we see around us, we're gonna become. It's like monkey see, monkey do. So when we see people angry, we say, okay, well, this looks like a good way how to express how we should feel. But most of the times, it's not going to be in the case. So we have to really kind of unprogram some of these programs we've installed into our minds so then we can be able to be more socially acceptable human being.
So for me, being able
Yep.
to have the tools and skills to navigate life is important, so that way you don't have to get to the point of, like, obviously, again, therapy can
Yeah,
be helpful and as a tool, but I think as if you can manage things effectively in your life, then that helps limit the likelihood that you may need to go to therapy because things have gotten so
exactly.
problematic.
So I think time is really a big key thing too when we talk about managing our feelings. Like people don't want to take time to do that because for one, they don't know how, and then two, they don't really want to. And then it's like, well, how do I even do it? Nobody's taught me. And I kind of blame the school system for not, teaching kids on an early age, like you talk about how to, like emotional management should be a core elective, man. Who cares about some of these other stuff, man? It should be the main thing because a lot of these schools, especially in our country, you can't teach anything to a kid if he's standing on the table.
Yeah.
Like we have to address the behavior first. We have to kind of figure out how to manage that before we teach them geometry because I mean, who's going to care? So it's like we have to, emotional management should be a core elective in every high school, middle school, and even elementary school, and maybe even in college as well. I don't understand why that's not. Because if you can't manage your emotions, you won't be able to manage anything else in your life. You
Yeah,
really won't.
that's a really good point. So, sort of adding or piggybacking off of that, like, what are some ideas or strategies that are helpful to, like, navigate managing some of your anger emotions?
Well, the thing what I kind of share is like for one thing, when we talk about that is like for what I do or what somebody else may do may not work for somebody else. So it's really important to understand who you are and understand what works for you. Because I mean, I could give, somebody what worked for somebody else, but that may not work for them because everybody's different. So it's like that's one thing to kind of really understand too. But I always like to focus on things that are very simple, because I find the most simplest things are the most difficult things to do, you know? And simplicity, as I always say, is the highest form of sophistication. I mean, that's what Leonardo DiCaprio, not DiCaprio, but Leonardo da Vinci, completely different, right? But he speaks about that too. And a lot of his work is very detailed, but it's very simple. So like simple things like are very hard to do for people. Like just for one simple thing is going for a walk. Like that sounds like dumb. And it's like, well, that's easy, but yes, it's helpful. It's very helpful. Like going out for a walk, just briefly go out there, get some fresh air, drink some water. Like some of the things I recommend are so simple, people just look at me like I'm crazy. But it's like you need to do it, right? And so one thing is getting a good sleep schedule, like waking up every day at the same time. Like that's so important, man. Because then when we go on Saturday and Sunday, we try to catch up on sleep. I don't believe in catching up on sleep. Like you should wake up every day at the same time.
Again, thank you for taking the time
Mhm.
to join the show